Hello, my name is Dr. Will Barras and I'm the undergraduate programme convener for Language and Linguistics at the University of Aberdeen. In this video, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the structure of our degree programme, the topics that we cover, the range of courses that we offer, as well as some information about teaching styles and types of assessment. One question that we get asked at open days quite regularly is, what classes will you take? Our courses at level 1, which are often taken in a student's first year, are English Structure and Use and English Past and Present. So English Structure and Use is very much about the building blocks of doing linguistics. How can we analyse language and how can we begin to think about linguistic structure? So we start at the beginning. We think about the sounds of human language, which is phonetics. We then go on to think about how those sounds are organised in particular languages, and that topic is phonology. You might have already heard of some of these terms depending on what you've studied previously. We then go on to look at the structure of words, morphology, and the structure of sentences, syntax. Once we've developed a framework for talking about how language is organised, we can then get into the questions of how language varies, how different speakers use language, and how language works in larger units like whole texts or collections of speech. Our course in the second semester of level 1 is English Past and Present. As the name suggests, that very much takes a historical perspective, so we go right back to the earliest forms of English, Old English, and we steadily go through the changes and developments in the English language up until present-day English. We then, in the second half of the course, consider the ways in which English varies in the present day, and also some of the interesting new directions that languages such as English are taking. So for instance, we look at online communication, both in speech and also in a written form. At level 2, so these courses are often taken in students' second year, again we have 2 courses from linguistics. One is Language and Society, which really focuses on sociolinguistics and how different groups of speakers, and indeed different individual speakers, vary in the way that they use language. The second course we offer at level 2 is Varieties of English, and in many ways this actually builds on what you've done at level 1. So we're still thinking about phonetics and phonology and morphology and syntax, but with a real focus on dialect variation, how we can measure and observe that variation, and also how present-day variation can tell us about how language developed over time. Now, one of the great features of the degree programme at Aberdeen is that, particularly in your first and second years, you will be taking a wide range of additional courses, so breadth of curriculum is a real strength. And to get a sense of that, let's address another question that often comes up, which is, what might a typical timetable look like for a first-year student? Here we've got a Monday to Friday teaching timetable, and when you sign up for one of our linguistics courses, you might find that your timetable looks like this. We have 2 lectures, each one lasts for an hour, and we have 1 tutorial. So we'll talk a little bit about lectures and tutorials later on. At first glance, that might seem a very empty timetable. So the first thing to bear in mind, of course, is that you will be spending a good deal of time outside of lectures and class time in your own reading, thinking, and preparation. Each week, for instance, you will be set some work to prepare for the tutorial. And so before the tutorial class, you'll be expected to have read some material, perhaps to have worked through some questions, and to be ready to talk about those in class. Likewise, when you go to lectures, what we really want you to do is to listen and focus and think about the topics that are being discussed in those lectures. But of course, after the lectures have taken place, it's always a good idea to continue to read about those topics, perhaps to go back over the lecture notes and to make sure that you are on top of the material that we've been talking about. So, even just thinking about your linguistics courses, there is more that you're expected to do each week than simply those 3 hours of class time. But of course, on the previous slide, I mentioned the breadth of study that's an inherent and really valuable part of the degree programmes at Aberdeen. And so, as well as your linguistics course, you would probably be taking an additional 3 courses. So your weekly timetable might look a little bit like this, where suddenly you have lectures for other subjects, tutorials for other subjects. This will vary a little bit depending on the nature of those subjects. If, for instance, you're doing a modern language, you might well have other classes dotted around your timetable too. You might well be taking a course in English, or perhaps courses from further afield in the university, maybe philosophy or psychology. There's a really, really wide range of options that are available to you. So that's what your typical first year, first semester timetable might look like. And as I said, the first 2 years, the pre-honours years, are really marked by this breadth of study and an encouragement to widen your horizons and really engage with a range of subjects. When you get to year 3 and year 4, these are the honours years of our programme. And if you're taking an honours degree in linguistics, this is the chance to focus on the areas of linguistics that you have become particularly interested in. So you can see from these representative course titles here that we offer courses which focus on particular aspects of linguistics. Phonetics, for example, builds on the knowledge that you will have gained at levels 1 and 2 and then extends it. And in honours phonetics, we begin to look at the acoustic analysis of speech, which essentially involves recording speech and analysing frequencies and amplitudes of sound waves and using computers to do this sort of analysis. We also have courses in stylistics, which is focused on the linguistic style of texts, both fiction and non-fiction. The course titles here also include Language Variation and Change, which focuses on social linguistics and language change. First and second language acquisition, which is often a subject that students are very interested in, and this course extends their knowledge about that topic. Discourse analysis looks at the analysis of language in different settings, whether that be the workplace or the media or online communication. We also have dissecting sentences and unwinding words, which are essentially about syntax and morphology. And that picture of being able to focus in on areas that you're particularly interested in, that carries on in the 4th year of the degree as well. So again, we have a list of course titles here. These will vary slightly from year to year, depending on which members of staff are teaching at level 4 that year. But this is a representative set of course titles. Another key aspect of the programme is the way in which each level builds on the previous level. So for example, you can see some level 4 courses here that extend the skills and the knowledge that you will have acquired at level 3. Language and the Professions, for instance, considers a specific aspect of discourse analysis, so language in the workplace. Sociophonetics combines precise phonetic analysis of speech with detailed and careful analysis of social variation. And the same is true for the rest of the courses we have at level 4. At the bottom of the slide, you can see in bold print, dissertation in language and linguistics. And in common with many degree programmes, the dissertation is in many ways the high point of the whole degree. This is the opportunity for a student to plan and then carry out an independent piece of research with close supervision from a member of staff into a particular topic that they have become interested in. So really, any topic that you've met in the previous 3 years of the degree and that you think would merit some further investigation would be a great choice for a dissertation topic. Another question that's often asked at open days is, what are the classes like? How big are the classes? This varies. So in first and second year, the lecture classes can be quite large. There may be more than 100 students in the lecture theatre. This tends to get smaller as the degree progresses. So in second year, and then particularly in levels 3 and 4, when we move much more to smaller seminar discussions, you move away from those large groups. But right from level 1, each week you're in a smaller tutorial group. Those groups will be round about 12 to 15 students, and they give you an opportunity to interact with your classmates, to ask questions of your tutors, and to really make sure that you understand the topics and that you're meeting the learning outcomes for that particular course. Another really important question is, what will the university do to support your learning when you're taking one of our degree courses? Well, one of the key support resources that we have is our virtual learning environment, My Aberdeen. On My Aberdeen, we provide copies of lecture notes. We also make lecture recordings, and more, we're hosting discussion boards and online opportunities for students to interact. Here, for instance, is an example of a My Aberdeen course area. This is from English Structure and Use for the year that's just taken place. And what you can see here is a set of lecture notes. This was actually the very first lecture. So what you're seeing on the screen here is a bit of administrative detail. So those lecture notes you can print off or you can look at on screen. You can also access recordings of the lectures. Fine. Right, so we're going to start to think about sounds. And our catchily titled slide here is things that make you go, Okay, so in language and in languages, there are repeating patterns, right? So look, it's quite interesting here. So what you can hear there is me delivering the first lecture for English Structure and Use back in week 1 of the first semester. And by revisiting these lecture recordings, you're able to go back and check that you understand what has been discussed. And if anything still isn't clear, of course, you can then raise it in your tutorial. The lecture recording system we use is really very user-friendly. So you can see just on this screen that you can jump around to particular slides in the lecture presentation and revisit what was said to go with that particular slide. Now, another really important question that comes up at open days is, will there be exams? Or more broadly, what will the assessments be like? We really use a mixture of assessment types. You will write essays. You will also take some online tests. We take tutorial work very seriously, so all of our courses include a tutorial assessment mark as a small proportion of the overall grade. Some of the courses involve group presentations or small group research projects, and yes, some courses will have exams. But it's worth remembering that a 2-hour written exam is not always the most effective way of assessing whether students have met the learning outcomes for particular courses. And so we really try to make use of a wide range of assessment types. Here, for example, is one of our online tests for English Structure and Use. And you can see here that I'm asking you questions about phonetics and phonology through a multi-choice online test. These tests are mobile compatible and very flexible, so students can take them on smartphones or their own devices, as well as on a university computer in one of the computer rooms. We have 6 members of full-time teaching staff in our department with a range of areas of expertise. And if you want to find out more, I'd encourage you to have a look at our webpage where you can get an overview of who's who and what we teach. Of course, your time at university is not just about what you do in lectures and tutorials. There are lots of opportunities for extracurricular activities at the university, including the university's Linguistics Society, which is very active and runs all kinds of social events as well as events with a linguistics focus, which can really tie in with your studies. The Linguistics Society has a website and an email address. They're also on Facebook if you want to look for them there. Here you can see some students earlier this year who were taking part in a markathon for the UK Linguistics Olympiad, and this involved students grading school children's exam papers for the Linguistics Olympiad. And this was a really great thing for our students to get involved with. Here you can see some students at the Societies Fair recruiting members for the Linguistics Society. And here you can see some of the students at a Christmas dinner night out that they organised. I hope that was useful. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to get in touch by email. Thank you for watching.